Hey, Tunde. Welcome to our podcast.
Always glad to be here. Okay, now I'm talking like a guest.
You're my favorite guest and host all at the same time. So before we started, we were discussing some topics we can address today. And can you tell me how you came up with a list of topics? You just asked ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, I just asked ChatGPT what kind of topic we could discuss based on what our channel is all about, and it gave some recommendations.
Yeah, and you
And we
can.
just pick one at random, I guess.
All right. Well, maybe we can keep that up and pick another one next week or something. So
Yeah.
this week you let me pick, and I found one about building resilience, which resonated with me because last week, I had a discussion with some other parents about um, how to deal with the autumn weather in the Netherlands and whether you should bring your kids to school in the car when it's raining or you let them go on the bicycle. And now this is a pretty straightforward choice. On the other hand, it isn't. So I think it's a bit of a hard choice for a parent because nowadays, if you live in a modern Western country, you probably have a lot of options to sugarcoat life a little bit for your kids. You can make it very easy. But if you look at the building resilience, you might not want to do that. What's your take on what do you think is resilience? Let's dive into that a little bit first.
Um, I think resilience is how to go through difficult times, right? And it's important to build resilience because it's actually part of life. Life will not always go as you want it every time. Um, so as a parent, you you want to, because you love your kids, you want to give them everything they want to give them everything they ask for, um, which might look good as being a loving parent, but it's not going to be very good in the long run. Um, I can give an example also for my son is less than 2 years old. One of the things that I notice, so for example, when he's hungry and his mom is making his food, and his mom will say, "Can you keep him away so he doesn't um, cry while I'm making his food?" I say, "I can play with him, but I will let him watch you make his food, so he knows it takes time to make food before it's ready for him to consume." If every time food appears like a magic, every time he thinks it takes a second to make food, and one day food doesn't suddenly appear, it's going to look weird for him. So he has to be prepared. He has to have the mindset that things takes time. He needs to wait for food to be ready and watch it, how it's been made, and also probably get used to the process, enjoy the process of waiting for something to be ready. At first, it was quite difficult. He would cry, but after about 2 or 3 days, he got used to it, and he would just sit down there and waiting for the food and maybe cry a little bit. But once you tell him that, oh, just wait, food is almost done, he would just wait.
Oh, that's absolutely interesting. I mean, we live in the era of instant gratification, right? So if you want a car, you get a loan, you get a car. So even for adults, it's hard to have the delayed gratification that you have to wait for something. So for kids to learn to be patient or to put in effort, I think that's amazing. Um, I absolutely recognize this. I this is my kids are 10, 12, um, and they if they want something, they want it right now. And it's always for us a discussion with them what kind of process they need to go through to obtain what they want. They want to put in some effort, or they need to save something, or whatever the stuff is. So, for the cooking stuff, your kids too, but if it's um, a bit older, you could probably just invite to help. It's also a good way of showing the process of making the food, and I think that's also a bit of a quality time thing that maybe over time we lost that touch. Well, in the classic family situation with a lot of kids, a lot of stuff had to be done, and doing chores was normal. And nowadays, I see a lot of parents. Well, do you? They ask me, do you let your kids do chores? Because I don't think that's I should do that. And, in fact, I do. I do have my kids do some small chores, especially taking care of the pets. They want it. So we have guinea pigs, and I let the kids clean out their cage, and they take care of the cats during feeding time. These are just small ones, and it's not helpful because I always have to double check what they do, and always have to remind them. So it's not really that helpful, but it's I think a fundamental thing that they know they have a responsibility.
Mhm.
Also, it's small, and I still back it up. Um, but yeah, I think the gratification thing you just explained is wonderful. I mean, having your kid learn that it has to wait before the food is
Yeah.
prepared. It makes sense. Um,
And also you mentioned about doing chores at home.
mhm.
As young as he is, I've been training him to do some work as well. So for example, when he's finished eating some meal, I will ask him to take the if the dish is made from plastic. So for example, I cut some fruit, it's inside a plastic bowl.
Mhm.
Ask him to take it to the kitchen, so he will do that. And if I change his diaper, the mat I used to change the diaper and the wet wipes case, I'll ask him to put it back into the shelf. So he would do that by himself and put it back. He's not even speaking yet, but he can understand when you tell him to do something. And
Well,
so
it,
it's been trained to do some chores. And I think one of the problem we have today is most of the housework now being done by machines. So like doing the dishes, you have a dishwasher, you have a robot that cleans the floor. You, so there's almost nothing else to apart from cooking. And for your kid to be old enough to cook, it's going to take some time. I
yeah,
mean, it's something that is edible. So
and coming back to the topic of resilience, I think your definition or your explanation of resilience makes sense. I mean, for me, it's a quite literal. Uh, I live in a windy country, and we bicycle. We use the bicycle a lot, so you have to bike against the wind quite often, which
mhm,
is a quite nice metaphor to the wind you will receive in life. You won't always have a clear sky and a nice breeze pushing you forward. Life will throw a lot of storms at you, and the more you've learned to use your bike and your muscle against that storm, the more resilience you build against it. And that's what I try to explain to my kids as well. So we have been bringing them to school with the bike since they were little, and they kind of damn us every every autumn and winter for it, because even if it rains, we just put on the raincoat and we just go. Sometimes you have a wet trouser or shoes. Sometimes you don't. Um, but it's for me a fundamental look at how I want them to become. And yeah, other parents, they give their kids an electric bike so they don't have to pedal too hard if it's windy, and they bring them with the car whenever it's raining. And I get that because you want, like you said, you want the best for your kid. You want them to have an easy life, and it's the comfort we we have nowadays. But I always think at it from the other side. What is it showing? As soon as there is a resistance, mom and dad will fix it. Whenever it's rainy or windy, mom and dad will fix it. Or we get an appliance to help you out there. Um, and at the end, I think resilience is a fundamental trait. That if you build that when you're younger, even if you have a very comfortable life, whenever it's a bit less comfortable, you will kick back into that mode of okay, I need to push harder. I need to do put in a little bit more effort instead of just go. Yeah, no, someone has to fix it because usually I'm used to my parents bringing me to school now. And who's going to bring me to school now? But yeah, in your adult
Yeah.
life, no one's going to bring you to school, so you'll have to figure that out yourself. On the long term, we'll see if this works out or this is going to mean I have to pay a lot of therapy for them. But
Yeah,
I
that's the thing. It's very difficult to be a good parent, because you don't know what the end result will be. They might you might think you are doing something right for them, but then it turns out to be the opposite. So for example, with the bike example you made, right? So if let's say your kid are riding normal bikes and their peers are riding the electric bikes, those with electric bikes will be making fun of them, like uh, and whatnot. And I think something important that we could do as parents in that case is to let the kids understand why we are doing something for them, and understand that we are not trying to make their life difficult, but uh, maybe look at the positive aspects. So, for example, if we say, uh, let's say, for example, your daughter or son came home and said, "Hey, my classmate made fun of me because I was the only one in class riding a normal bicycle, and everybody else has a electric bike. I want an electric bike." I think uh, what that might trigger you or even me as a parent to want to buy an electric bike immediately for my child. But the best thing would be to build up their self-esteem and tell them, hey, look, everybody in your class is not going to have enough muscle, leg muscle like you. And muscle is good for health. So they are at some disadvantage while you are at some advantage in that sense. You'll be more healthy than they are.
yeah, for I have two kids. One is in the middle school. The other one's in primary school. That's how it works in the Netherlands. Around 12, you switch to the middle school. So she's there, and indeed a lot of her peers have that. But um, I'm just lucky that she is capable of making that conclusion herself. So she figured that her skeletal muscle is staying strong because she using her legs to use the bike, and she's on other sports as well. So she also noticed that although she is younger than her peers and she's smaller than her peers, her overall physical health is on par with them. She can keep up because uh, she's very strong and has a good endurance. So she has tied those things together, which
Good.
makes it that she is not asking for the only thing she asks for is not to have to bike through the rain. So last week when it was raining, I got out the rain suit for her, put it on, and she had to bike through the rain in her rain suit, which is a pain in the ass because the rain goes outside and your sweat stays inside, so it's never comfortable, right? And although it covers most of your body, it doesn't cover everything. You're probably going to end up with some water ending up going here, or your shoes are wet,
In
or
these shoes, yeah.
it's a bit of discomfort you'll have to deal with. And I just so yeah, I kind of want you to know how it feels like to have wet shoes the first few hours on school. and how it is to have to endure that. And um, it's there's another thing about resilience and building resilience as well. If you look at how you store your memories, if everything goes well, you store hardly any memories. But whenever you are, for example, that one time you went out for a hike and you got completely soaked because of the rain, or you went somewhere and something happened to a festival and there was a big thunderstorm or whatever. Those are the events you remember, right? So if
Yeah.
you want to store a lot of memories, it's also good to be outside of that comfort. So I think this ties in. So on the one side you have the bit of the resilience, and on the other side you have a bit of the comfort crisis, where we have made our life so comfortable that we even build up extreme amounts of anxiety and stuff like that, because there is nothing for your mind to focus on. There's nothing happening, and since our brain is pretty much a problem solving thing,
Mhm.
it will seek to find problems. So
Well, the best stories anyone could tell are stories of where they go through some difficulties, either physically or emotionally or whatever.
yeah,
Those are the stories like everybody is interested to hear, and they are also very eager to tell. If everything goes well, it's going to sound boring, like, you know, 5 years ago, I remember waking up and taking my coffee and driving to work and coming back home. That is boring, right?
yeah,
But if you say, "Oh, I remember driving to work and my car broke down and it was raining and I had to change the tire while it was raining," those are things you remember, and people will be, "Oh, how did you fix it without a mechanic? How did you learn how to do that? And did you have to YouTube or Google something how to fix it? How did you have the enough strength to change the wheel or jack up the car or something?" Those are things that are more interesting to talk about. So those are uh, difficult times that keeps difficult times that your brain will store in its memory.
yeah, the exceptions, right? So
Yeah.
and I did another thing that as a parent is interesting. um, my kids quite often say to me, but that's not fair. They have a strong feeling of what's fair and what's not fair. It's not fair that you're not bringing me with the car. And basically my answer has been for a little while, but life is not fair. You have no right to have a fair life. um, and it's not that I want to be an asshole for not bringing them with the car, while in theory I could. It's just that at the end, um, whenever you have this rain in your life or whatever is happening, it will always happen, or most of the time happen when you don't expect it, when you're not waiting for it. So, for example, if you lose your job, or you have a leakage in your roof, it never kind of happens when you're planning on repairing the roof anyway, or doing so that happens, and that's not fair. I mean, I think that's an interesting concept, and it makes me struggle a little. And I feel like, yes, but I think in theory everything should be fair, but in reality, it hardly ever is. So,
No.
um, and that's resilience as well. Even if it's not fair, what's happening, you just get yourself up and you go on. You move forward. And you keep your head up and you just move forward, because that's how life is. And
Yeah. From the first day you were born, life is not fair because you didn't ask to be born. So,
that's true. And you didn't. You probably, for in many cases, you didn't ask to be born in the place you were born as well.
yeah,
So there are many places on this planet where you probably don't want to be born. If you had a choice, you chose another place. um,
exactly. I was watching a video of a woman that was, I don't know if it was real, or the lady was making a joke or something. She wanted to sue her parents for giving birth to her because she didn't ask them or they didn't consult before they gave birth to her, and she was ranting about suing them and everything. So, yeah,
That's an interesting concept. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean you just yeah, you pop out of your mom and then you're here and then you're right. That's not fair.
yeah,
But I think that part of the self awareness and exploring who you are, and it is a strong thing in the Western world. I think there are a lot of people that have enough comfort to be able to think about that. You're not busy with survival, so you have more
yeah,
time.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, I think the parents I spoke to last few weeks about this, some are just going into, yeah, but I want to make my kid more able to do stuff themselves, so I want them to bike, and others are like, yeah, but if it's raining, I think I'm gonna budge because yeah, then my kid is gonna go cry and blackmail me basically because the parents they often know what's happening, but they just cave in, and I get it. I mean, when I saw my daughter bike off and she was very upset with her rain suit on, it was a tough moment. I could have just any moment say, "Oh, get in the car, I'll bring you," but I didn't. And then at the afternoon, she came home and it was dry, so she didn't have to wear the rain suit. I said, how was the trip to school? Oh, it was fine. Yeah, it was a bit of rain, but it was fine. I said, "Okay, are you good?" "Yeah, I'm good." And she already forgot about it. It
Yeah,
was no only the whole idea of having to bike through the rain was terrible, but as soon as she was underway, apparently it was not that bad. And yeah, but that's just one part of the resilience. I mean, I think the building the mental resilience, for example, against peer pressure. That's a hot
mm.
topic here as well.
Yeah. As a new parent, that bothers me a lot, because uh, I'm always thinking. I was my wife was telling me about a situation where uh, someone there was a bully in school that bullied another kid, and the mom of the kid that was bullied went to the school to complain, and the school did nothing. And the bully kid, was even trying, was very rude. He wasn't apologetic or anything. So also very rude to the mom. And the mom could not do anything because, well, the kid said, if you hit me, you hit a minor, so you commit a crime. So she couldn't do anything. So in that case, what what can you do? And we both decided, okay, yeah, you can hit the kid, of course, as an adult. The only thing you can do is train your child how to defend him or herself. So put him or her into fighting school or jiu-jitsu school, or whatever it's called, school or kung fu school, so he can learn how to fight and then he can defend himself.
I have two kids, so my daughter, she seems to be very ineffective by this kind of stuff. She kind of, if someone is teasing her, she kind of laughs him in the face because she says, "The fuck are you doing? You don't have me with this. You're dumbass." And that's powerful. So no one has a grip on her because she is not responding in the way a bully would want you to respond. She actually was semi assaulted by some boys, older boys, in some playground, and she punched one right in the face. She just sucker punched him in the middle of the face. I said, "What? You did what?" I said, "You can't solve this with violence, but high five because you stood up for yourself. You did good." That's a bit of the problem you have as a parent. You no, violence is not the answer, but if you are uh,
Yeah,
if you there were like four or five boys and they were yelling at her and they were bigger and older, and she punched the biggest one right in the face, didn't see it coming, and he went off crying, and she went like, "Okay, that's solved." So no, violence is not the answer until it is, right? She's a little girl and she fought off. I'm not sure if this could have ended in a different way without using a fist, but she felt like she was so much cornered.
Well, so is your daughter an extrovert or introvert? Do you know?
Introvert, yeah. She's very much introverted. Yeah.
Ah, I see. I when I was young, I can remember two occasions. One occasion, I had a football. I
Mm-hmm.
always take it to was it school, or I think it was a private lesson during the holiday. We always go to lesson to learn to study more. So I always take my football to school. So we played football after class. And one day my football was stolen. So for example, when I'm in class, I'll put my football somewhere and I tell everybody else this is where I kept the football. And when if they want to get it, they can go get it while I'm in class and they can play. And then I'll join them later. So I already told them where the football is. And then after my class, I went there. My football was gone. I was like, what? Nobody else knew where this football is except you guys. So as I was telling my other friend that we were looking for the football, I knew exactly who stole it. So the guy that stole it was coming and was saying, so I asked him, where's my football? I said, oh, he's just coming. He hasn't been here all day. It's like, that's a lie. You are not just coming. So I went, I followed him to his house to go get my football. No matter what happened, I was ready to fight everyone to go get my football. So that was one occasion that I was very fearless. And another occasion was I was in church. I was very young, and this church was a new church to me. I went to visit my aunt, and so the sermon was going on, and there was this kid that was making noise next to me. So I said, shh, keep quiet. Before I said, shh, I had, oh, this kid slapped me in the
Oh,
middle of the sermon. So I kept my cool. I didn't want to make any noise while the sermon was going on. So about an hour later, when everything ended, so I was looking for him to slap him back. So when I found him, I slapped him. And then the guy said, "Oh, why did you slap me?" It's like, "You slapped me like an hour ago." It's like, that wasn't me. That was my brother. So
oh, you slapped the wrong one.
I slapped the wrong one. So I went again looking for the right guy that slapped me. So I slapped him also. So I slapped two brothers in one night.
Okay. Well, the thing is,
But
my son, he's completely different than my daughter. He's very sensitive to what people tell him or say to him, or if they tease him. And then you come in a situation that I I try to explain to him. He doesn't have the right in his life for everyone to be kind to him. That's I think um, expecting everyone to be reasonable with you or be kind to you because you don't like to be teased. It's not how it works. So I try to teach him to be resilient and to be mindful of the fact. And I learned a nice example. For example, if I would say, Tuna, you're the ugliest pink elephant I've ever seen. Your trunk thing and your tail and the color of your pink elephant skin. It's just obnoxious to me. Then you go like, well, why should I care about this? Because I know I'm not a pink elephant. So it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't hurt you. It's the same thing if I would go swearing at you in Dutch. If I would call you names in Dutch, you would go like, what? Because you don't even understand what I'm saying. And the thing is that is someone near to you and is swearing to you, you have a choice uh, on your own internal weighing scale. How much does it weigh? How much does do I take this seriously? And that's the whole difficult thing that I noticed that my son is taking everything extremely personal and extremely um, serious. while I'm trying to let him scale it down a little bit. No one is really invulnerable to swearing or being made fun
The-
of. So there is a limit of what you can deal with. Oh, you want to respond? Go ahead.
yeah. I think the reason I gave you those two examples where I retaliated was because I think when I was young, I was mostly like your son.
Ah, okay.
If you say something bad to me,
Yeah,
I take it very personal,
yeah.
and I would cry. If if someone yells at me,
Mm-hmm.
I would just cry. I would prefer if someone eat me or something, but you know, but so I was very sensitive with people's words
Yeah.
towards me or against me, and those two situations were things that I remember that I stood for myself, and whatever what they said that time or did that time, I just stood the ground and took everything. So that's why um, emotional um, resilience is quite difficult to build in someone. It takes time. I mean, I mentioned something like putting your child into martial arts school or something. They can
Yeah.
learn that, but the words of abuse that can come from a bully can be very hurtful, and that is very difficult to train.
It is because
In
those bullies are very good at finding your button and pressing
Yeah,
it all day long. And my son is telling about it often. He says, like the first 5 times the bully was pushing it, he ignored it, and then the sixth time and seventh time, and then he feels it build up. And yeah, after a while, he does cave in, and then the bully is very happy with the fact that he got an effect, and my
yeah.
son is very disappointed that he lost his thing. But the only positive thing about it is that I think of, well, you managed to um, absorb the first 6 times, and maybe next time you will do it 7 times, and after a while you'll be able to ignore it so long that the bully will lose its interest. And indeed, my son is doing judo um, for a while, and that's bringing him the capacity to defend himself physically. But the mental part is still a bit difficult. And the problem is that he, like you explained, he can become physical when challenged a lot,
Mm,
and then he retaliates, and then he gets the blame
yeah.
because the retaliation is not being done very covertly. He just grabs a kid and pushes him around or whatever. And he has the advantages. He's physically quite strong, so I'm not too worried about that. But that also means that he needs to learn how to contain that anger which builds up. Because sooner or later he starts throwing around kids, and then I have to go to school to explain what happened. Um, but yeah, that part of resilience. So we touched on the mental resilience, I think, and physical resilience on martial arts. I think that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Um, and as a parent, not to be too easy on your kids. But you also mentioned, I think, a very, very important thing is to explain why no electric bike. It's not because I want to be an ass, but because I want to um, teach you something, to give you something, basically. I want to give you the ability to get stronger legs and be able to bike against strong winds.
Yeah, and I think building the emotional resilience has to do with also building the confidence in the kid. And to build confidence, they need to understand um, the response to what is happening.
Yeah,
Why they have to respond this way
yeah,
instead of that way. So because as you're mentioning, like if um, a bully pushed your son's button 6 times before he retaliated, You can say it can build more resilience, and you can take it for 10 times next time or 20 times the other time. That could go either way. It could go in a positive way where he becomes very strong emotionally, or it could go the wrong way where he feels really bad about himself because everybody now makes fun of him because they know he
Yeah.
wouldn't do anything.
And that was the reason why I was proud of my daughter, even though she used violence, but she was cornered and she punched her way out. And I could see in her eyes she felt empowered. I saw I saw her demeanor like five big guys. They couldn't get me cornered. I didn't need help. I could fend them off myself. And she actually, I have my small home gym with a punching bag, and I trained her a couple of basic kickboxing moves, and she said she used those on the kid. And I was like, oops, that wasn't the purpose of my training, but it worked, and I think that was for her very strong. I hope the boy comes out unscathed, but also learned a lesson about not cornering little girls because they can be fearful. But for my son, yeah, I think you do touch a thing what is interesting, right? I mean, in the animal world, where we're not so long away from, this would be solved with a moderate amount of violence. If you look at monkeys interact and you start teasing a monkey and the monkey is fed up, the monkey
Mm,
will smack the other monkey and then send them away, right?
yeah.
Um, so I think that's a basic animal thing to happen. And now we all have to try to solve it verbally. And while the, the key response is still um, to solve it with a physical action. So I think that's the hard part about it. When you have to suppress your primal instinct and then translate it into words, be kind and respectful while the people around you have hours and hours to slowly teach because they're just pinching him in class and they're poking him and because they know that sooner or later he will respond. While I do know that if he would punch the biggest annoying kid in the face, this would end. um,
It's like the first rule of prison, right? You beat the biggest guy and then you rule the prison.
yeah, I think it's like that in class as well. Well, it's already 5 minutes past our usual time. I don't know if you have a follow up meeting, leaving people waiting now, but
Yeah, I'm free after this.
oh right, okay. But I think it was a really interesting discussion.
Yep.
Uh, time to wrap up. So thanks,
All right. Thank you.
and well, let's talk next week.
Yeah, and good luck with your garden.
Yeah, thanks.